Wait, say that again.
Oh, you didn't get that at all?
No. I just turned it on, so
Oh,
this is the second part. We're talking about the Depression.
you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, talking about the Depression, a lot of people look back on it as a horrible time, but I look on it as one of the happiest times of our life. We had plenty to eat, and we raised our own food, and we didn't have the luxuries that some people had. We didn't have an automobile or a telephone or fancy clothes, stuff like that, but we knew we were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. We just knew we didn't have any money. So during that time, life just went on. Didn't seem any different than any other period other than money was scarce. Stock market fell in 1929. Money supply dried up. And it lasted until about 39 when the war in Europe started. And when the United States got into the war, why, it went away. The Depression ended, and time of prosperity, because the government had to print money to buy everything that they needed.
Just open it.
And you shut that off. At the end of the Depression, there was plenty of money, and everybody had a job. During the Depression, very few people had a job. I was lucky, just as a teenager, to get a job as a section hand on the railroad. We worked 10 hours a day for 22.5 cents an hour, 2 1/4 a day for 10 hours of hard work. But we felt we were lucky to have a job because a lot of men with families didn't have a job and were living on government doles. The government was handing out food every week. If you needed some food, well, you could go to Logan to a certain place and and get it. We never needed to do that because we had plenty of food of our own. Our electric bill was about $1.50 a month. So that's about the only expenses we had. We didn't have a telephone, so we certainly didn't have television
Or the internet?
or stuff like that. So the Depression was just a good time to be alive. If you had food and a place to live, why, you were lucky, and it didn't bother you so much. So that's all I have to say about the Depression.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
There were 8 of us. My father built a home in Wellsville in 1913. That was 4 years before I was born. One of the first houses that had a bathroom with a toilet and running water. But in those days they built a house with a big front room and a big living room and a big front porch, but only 1 bedroom. And here was 8 kids and 2 parents. That's 10 people in a small house with only 1 bedroom. So some nights you had to find a place to sleep. I remember there was 4 of us boys, We were just small, sleeping head to toe, 4 of us in the bed in our parents' bedroom, which I imagine to them wasn't very, I don't know what the word would be. But anyway, this house had an attic in it, and we scrounged up some boards and lumber and stuff and put them along the rafters up in this attic. And we built a big tall ladder first that went up to a window in the end of the house that we could go through that window and in there. And so that window was a big window. We finally moved a bed up there and a pool table, and that's where we slept in the summertime when it was, well, sometimes it was too hot there, and in the wintertime it was too cold, but anyway, we slept there quite a bit. And the girls, they had a pull-out bed in the front room that they used, and our youngest, Rose, she was just a baby and was in a crib in the bedroom where we were. And my older brother, I can't remember where he slept. He wasn't there very much. He was off to Montana to work for farmers in the hay fields most of the time. Next.
What were the names of all your siblings and your parents' names?
My father was Robert Latham Bradshaw. He was born in 1883 to George Hild Bradshaw and Jeanette Latham. And his mother died. He had 5 sisters, and he was the last one, and when he was born, his mother, Jeanette, died. And so it was polygamy, and George, my grandfather, took his other wife, who was a Hamblin, took my father and raised him until he was 15, and then she died. And I don't know where he went after, to one of the aunts for a while, and then back in about 1903 or 4, his father died, and he inherited some money from the estate, and he used it to go on a mission to England. So he spent his inheritance going on a mission. But anyway, getting back to our family, there was, and then my mother, she was Nellie Baugh Bradshaw. Actually, she was a bat. She was she had a, no, my grandmother had a sister in North Logan that was having a baby, and she went to North Logan to take care of her sister, and her husband was George Batt, and I don't know whether he thought it was polygamy or what, but anyway, he got her pregnant. So my mother was born out of wedlock, illegitimate. But grandmother eventually married a John Baugh, and they adopted my mother. So she didn't take the Batt name, she took the Baugh name. And she trained to be a nurse and was I remember she was gone a lot. She'd go and stay with people that was having a baby, nurse the mother for 2 weeks at a time. But they had 8 children. George Donald was the oldest. Nelda was the second one. Enid, or Enid, we called her Enid. Some people called her Enid. She was the third one. And all 3 of them have died. Then there was Paul, who died when he was 15 with a ruptured appendix. And then there was myself. I was the 5th. And then there was Philip, who died when he was 9 with spinal meningitis epidemic. And then there was Wayne, who is still living in Washington Terrace. And then Rose, who is living in Hiram.
Okay.
There's only, what, 3 of us, 4 of us. No, 3 of us.
3.
Myself, Rose, and Wayne. Only 3 out of the 8 left. What else?
I don't know.
Well, I've had a wonderful life, almost 90 years. I've seen a lot of progress, a lot of changes, a lot of ups and downs. But if I had it to do over again, I'd do the same thing, except I'd start sooner.
Oh, thank you, Grandpa.
What other advice do you have to grandchildren and posterity?
Well, my favorite one, if you ever get an affliction, the best cure is to top off the 5th of Old Crow. That'll cure you every time, one way or another. And the best thing I learned from my father is you're going around the place, keep your eyes open, and if you see anything that needs to be done, do it.
Yeah?
Without being told.
You've been a great example with that in Smith's, Grandpa.
But other than that, I don't know. I don't have any great words of wisdom. I try to tell the young people to stay with the program of the church. If they stay with the program, they don't get into trouble. So
How about you bear your testimony for me?
Oh, I've had a lot of prayers answered. I know the gospel's true. I've taught it from goodly parents around the group. Better shut it off when I get composed. Is it on?
Yeah,
We
turn it
used
back
to get most of our teaching. My father was very knowledgeable about the gospel. He was a pulpit pounding preacher that could put over a point in his speeches in church. very effectively, and he wanted his family to grow up in the gospel, so every day, almost every morning, we would get a sermon around the breakfast table. So, and my mother was very devout. She, at one time, was president of the Relief Society and was very active in the church. And my father taught Sunday school for the gospel doctrine class for around 20 years. But I know the gospel's true because I've seen a lot of miracles happen because of it, a lot of prayers answered. Other than that, I don't know what to say. Is that thing still on? More questions?
You tuckered out?
I do have one thing that I didn't cover, but it doesn't need to be. I have arrhythmia of the heart. It was discovered while I was giving my physical exam for the Army, but the recruiters didn't think it was severe enough to turn me down. And it never showed up until I was back raising beans in Wellsville, and one day I got a funny feeling there that my heart started skipping beats, and went to the doctor, and he said you had arrhythmia. So he prescribed this Lanoxin and verapamil, and I've been taking that for 40 years, and I haven't had it hasn't kicked out for at least 30 years, but I still take the medicine.
Yeah.
So I did have polio, or not polio, spinal meningitis when my brother Philip had it back in the early 30s. He died, but I survived. I was 11 years old and he was 9. And I remember them tapping my spine to relieve the pressure on the brain that builds up in spinal meningitis. But I finally got over it. That was quite an epidemic back in those days. No cure, no medicine to help it.
Medicine and technology have come a long ways.
Yeah. Other than that, that's the only health problems I've had. Except in later years, I've had prostate problems, as most men do. Had to have it reamed out. But that I've had a hernia operated on. I've had cataracts removed from both eyes. I guess that's the only physical things I've had.
What do you have memorized? Is it the night before Christmas? What?
That was Grandma's.
What? You have a couple. Is it Lassie?
Alaska.
Alaska? I want to hear one. Is that? Do you have another one memorized other than that?
I had Ol Micky Flinagan had a wool pup.
Do either of those.
Ol Micky Flinagan had a wool pup. He was bred to four delicate stock. He fought in the battle of 70 hours. He did it so by the clock. He had a little bit of a tail, so he had bow-legged with 2 crooked eyes. One look at his smickety smack was enough. The devil himself in disguise. A bow wow for a dog to be sure. He'd fight and he'd never give up. There never was such a wonderful dog as old Micky Flinagan's pup. An Italian came round with an organ one day, a monkey touched fast to a string. When Perks of the monkey danced with delight, he gave the most wonderful spring. He upset the monkey, the grinder and all, and broke the old organ inside. And to be sure, he tried to swallow the monkey, and he choked on his tail and he died. A bow wow for a dog to be sure. He'd fight and he'd never give up. There never was such a wonderful dog as old Micky Flinagan's pup. Bow wow.
Nice, Grandpa.
I could do Alaska, but I need some notes because there's a couple or three lines that I've forgotten. If I can find it.
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh, I shouldn't sit so long.